Afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Today I'm going to discuss subjective well-being. So before I discuss on this concept of subjective well-being, let me give you an example of what it actually means to us. All of you might have experienced fever at some point of time in your life, or some kind of disease or bodily discomfort, and must have started some kind of medication, but the medication had stopped the symptoms, but not the feelings of illness. Your fever is down, it is under control, but you don't feel well. Have you experienced this ever? That the symptoms are gone, but you don't feel well. Gaurav,
Yes, sir.
you have experienced like this sometimes?
So can you please tell me one more time, sir?
Suppose you are having fever. You took medicines to lower your temperature lowering drugs. Your temperature is now under control, under within the normal temperature levels. But you don't feel well, even after your fever is gone. Ever experienced such kind of condition?
Yes, sir. I've experienced many times.
Oh,
Means after temperature also gone, I feel headache sometimes like that.
okay. HM Hashnod,
Yes, sir. I actually faced this problem several times. Actually, when I was in higher secondary level, on that time, maximum time, I feel there is fever in my body, in inner side, but in the upper side, I can uh, measure the temperature, and I talk to the doctor, and he suggests me a lot of medicine. After few months, I feel a little bit better, but before that, it was a huge problem for me because I felt fever in my inner side, but it's not that much heated in the upper side of my body.
right. So how many of you think that the doctor asks you this question, how do you feel? They might be asking this question in the name of getting some symptoms from you. So the treatment regimen follows a symptomatic treatment. You have these symptoms? Yes, sir. So you get these medicines. Your symptoms will be away, but your disease is not going. It is still there. And there is no such claim that you can cure the disease, because most of the disease originate not in the body but in the mind. So subjective well-being is more about your own feelings about your body and mind. And at the same time, do you also believe well-being means the same thing to different people? If we all enjoy and value different things, then how is it possible to understand happiness. Doesn't that make measuring happiness extremely difficult? Positive psychology is profoundly concerned with how people can do well, be well, feel well, and flourish over the long term. And subjective well-being is one way of understanding what this means to distinct individuals. We all are distinct individuals. So while a doctor or a physician treats a patient, another individual, he or she never tries to distinguish between patient A and patient B. The treatment regimen remains the same, but the feelings that the patients get are different from each other. And this is crucial in health psychology when you talk about health. So what is subjective well-being? According to Diener, D-I-E-N-E-R, in the year 2000, subjective well-being is people's cognitive and affective evaluations of their lives. Cognitive and affective evaluations of their lives. What is cognitive and affective evaluation of their lives? How do you process the information that you get from your surrounding? Cognitive processes. During this pandemic, you are bombarded with different varieties of information. You do not know what is correct and what is to follow, what is not to follow. Whether immunity is important or something else matters a lot in keeping you healthy for a long period of time. No one has the answer. No one really knows what is correct and what is wrong. And what happens then with so much of information? You try to cook those information in addition to some kind of emotions attached to it. Affective evaluation. When I talk about affective is about how do you feel. It's an emotional content. So both how you understand and how you feel, they contribute to the subjective well-being of an individual. So that is how it is defined. People's cognitive and affective evaluations of their lives. Winhoven in 1997 describes it similarly as cognitive and affective appraisals cover how good one's life feels, how well it meets expectations, and how desirable it is deemed to be. Very interesting. How good you feel, how well it meets expectations, how desirable it is deemed to be. So in general, there is a consensus among academics that the concept involves two broad elements: cognitive appraisal and affective appraisal. Cognitive appraisal describes how we consider our global or overall life satisfaction and our satisfaction with specific domains like family life, career, and so forth. Affective appraisal concerns our emotional experience. High subjective well-being is the experience of frequent and intense positive states. For example, joy, hope, and pride, and the general absence of negative ones. For example, anger, jealousy, and disappointment. So, this is how we understand subjective well being. So, now let me ask you if you have understood the concept of subjective well being. Taking your life till date as a whole, what score are you going to give yourself out of 10? Yogeshwar. Yogeshwar Kishan. Nitin Chauhan. Nitin Chauhan. Dishant Samal.
Yes, sir.
What score would you like to give to yourself out of 10 on subjective well-being?
So 6 to 7, I think.
6 to 7.
Yes.
D. Priti.
Yes, sir.
What score would you like to give yourself? Give to yourself?
Mm, 8, sir.
8. Fatima.
Yes, sir.
What score?
7.
7. Abhijit Behera. Abhijit.
Yes, sir.
What score are you going to give to yourself?
Sir, 6.
6. Anyone who would like to give the score of 3 or below can raise your hands. 4. 5. 10. Anyone who would like to give the score to 10? 9. Okay. 9. Okay. 9. Anyone else? So, can you please tell why did you give the score to yourself? And why did you not give 10? Kanupriya.
Yes, sir. Sir, still there are things that I haven't done. Like, still there are days when I used to regret for the things that I don't need to.
Hmm.
So,
But overall experience says that you are more than satisfied with your life, and you justify the number that you have given to yourself.
So because I'm totally satisfied with what I have done till now.
Mhm.
I have my main goal is to live my present fully,
Okay.
like learn as much as I can, which I did. And from the past 6 months, I'm
Mhm.
not doing it as well as I used to do it before.
Okay.
Therefore, I give myself 9 and not 10.
Had it been that you mm, would have achieved your wishes or fulfilled your wishes, you would have given to yourself 10?
Uh, if I have enjoyed my life fully, like if I have learned as much as I have could, then yes.
Okay. Mhm. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone having 8? 8. Okay. Priti, Rahul. Rahul.
Yes, sir.
So what is lacking? Why can't it be 10? Why it is not 10?
Because I think I can do better at everything what I am doing.
So that means
There are
you
still
are not
scope of
putting
improvement.
your 100% to whatever you are doing.
Sometimes I feel that I am not giving my 100%.
You can, but you are not giving.
Yes, sir. I feel sometimes.
Okay. Why do you think so? Like you can, but you are not giving. What is the problem?
Mm, I'm not able to identify it actually.
Okay, that's good. I mean, you can identify that you cannot identify it. That is an important uh, condition. Now you can find why it is not happening. At least your awareness will help you what is lacking. But there are people who even do not know why do they lack, or they are not aware that uh, they are not aware of it. That's
Yes.
interesting. When we think about and appraise our lives, we use our own standards of desirability. You did just now, all of you, those who have given some scores to yourself. Then we compare our status with those to determine how satisfied we feel. This is the subjective element of cognitive appraisal. When we think about and appraise our lives, we use our own standards of desirability. Then we compare our status with those to determine how satisfied we feel. This is the subjective element of cognitive appraisal. Likewise, different things are associated with positive affect for distinct people. This is the subjective aspect of affective appraisal. I repeat, different things are associated with positive affect, positive emotion, positive feeling for distinct people or different people. This is the subjective aspect of affective appraisal. In simple terms, your likings, all of your likings to a particular object may not be the same. You have different levels of likingness towards a particular object, and that makes you different from the other person. For example, sweets. Not each one of you are fond of sweets. For example, uh, going to uh, going for a uh, nature walk. Not everyone enjoys that, and someone becomes mad about it. Photography. Not everyone likes doing this, or not everyone is very satisfied with the kind of hobbies they follow. Some of them are mad about it, and some of them are very casual about it. All of you play cricket, but not all of you want to be in the Indian cricket team. So it depends. That varies from individual to individual. Your likingness to something, what makes different. Subjective well-being thus encompasses a vast array of different concepts, from fleeting experiences in our day-to-day to much broader global judgments that we make about our lives as a whole. It is typically considered a hedonic as opposed to a eudaimonic concept. You need to experience the happiness. Everyone. Subjective well-being is mostly used in a positive language, not in a negative sense, positive sense. Diner and subjective well-being theory. Professor Ed Diner is one of the world's foremost subjective well-being researchers, coining the construct in his seminal 1984 article titled Subjective Well-being. Ever since, he has continued studying the subject from a positive psychology perspective, with a career spanning more than 25 years. His vast contributions to the field have earned him the nickname Dr. Happiness. So, Professor Diner is also named as Dr. Happiness because of his contributions to the field on subjective well-being theory. In 1995 and 96, Diner carried out one of his best-known studies, Most People Are Happy, which found that most people reported a positive levels of subjective well-being and satisfaction with important life domains. This study, which he conducted with Carol Diner, presented evidence to suggest that 86% of the 43 nations examined average subjective well-being was higher than neutral. He also carried out research in 2002 along with positive psychology founding father Martin Seligman. You have heard him, Martin Seligman, in my earlier class, in what was probably the first report focused on very happy individuals. They screened US undergraduate students for happiness to examine factors that might influence high levels of happiness. Using multiple instruments that included the satisfaction with life scales, their findings revealed that while there appears to be no single key to happiness or high happiness, very happy people have rich and satisfying social relationships and spend little time alone relative to average people. And in the previous video by Dr. Martin Seligman, we have known this fact: relationship is the key to happiness. 3 components of subjective well-being. So if we wanted to measure subjective well-being, what precisely would we evaluate? So the 3 distinct components of subjective well-being, as suggested by Diner in 1984, Busseri and Sadawa in 2011, and Taub and Diner in 2013. They are: number 1, frequent positive affect. You feel positive very frequently. Number 2, infrequent negative affect. You don't feel negative things very often or quite often. Number 3, cognitive evaluations of one's life satisfaction. You also assess how satisfied you are in your life from time to time. You try to assess this. So these are the 3 major components of subjective well-being. How much time you feel very positive, how little time you feel negative, and your evaluations of your life satisfaction. You try to understand this more often. So these are the 3 components of subjective well-being, and they are related to each other. The more frequent positive affect you have, the less negative affect you have, and there would be high likelihood of cognitive evaluations of your satisfaction, life satisfaction. They are considered distinct but interrelated because individuals tend to make judgments of satisfaction. For example, my life is fantastic, using their emotional experience. For example, I am feeling great right now. Together, the 3 components make up the tripartite model of subjective well-being. The tripartite model of subjective well-being. You may note down these concepts so you can go back and see them over internet. The tripartite model of subjective well-being. The 2 affect components are typically assessed independently of the life satisfaction component using different scales. And now coming to an important question: why subjective well-being is important? There are many reasons why subjective well-being matters to individuals and society as a whole. Number 1 being quality of life, and number 2 is human progress. Broadly, these are the 2 major aspects why we should worry about, or why we should know about subjective well-being and its importance in our lives. Quality of life. Our affective experiences and overall emotional well-being are central to our quality of life as individuals. Individuals who feel satisfied with their lives and who frequently experience good feelings such as joy, contentment, and hope are more inclined to be seen as enjoying a high quality of life. Measures of subjective well-being can be used to inform policy decisions, academic curricula, and social initiatives that contribute to a better quality of life for citizens and communities across the world. The second aspect of subjective well-being is related to human progress. GDP, or gross domestic product, alone is not an adequate measure of life quality at the national level, although research suggests that it may have some impact on subjective well-being through various mechanisms. It is generally agreed that subjective well-being offers a more comprehensive measure of nation's well-being by extending the concept beyond merely material concerns and considers individual perspectives rather than outsider judgments. How it is related to mental health and happiness. subjective well-being and mental health. Mental health is critical to subjective well-being and vice versa. Subjective well-being is also related to and critical to mental health. Very crudely, it can be considered the absence of negative psychological symptoms and the presence of positive ones. What's important to note here is that the absence of illness and disease is not considered enough for people to have good mental health, and it's where subjective well-being comes into the definition. I have given you this example with your fever issue. By recognizing the role of feelings such as joy, life satisfaction, fulfillment, purpose, and contentment in life, we have a more holistic mental health concept. In turn, we can better understand how to facilitate its development in individuals and populations. Now the question is, are happiness and subjective well-being the same? Happiness is often equated with subjective well-being in the literature, media, and more. In recent times, however, the latter is more widely thought of as the main affective component of the former. Subjective well-being is the main affective component of happiness. Remember this. What this means is that in layman's terms and as described, subjective more than just happiness. By incorporating life satisfaction into subjective well-being measures, we include consideration of past experience and future expectations. And what is the link between subjective well-being and positive psychology? As a discipline, positive psychology is focused on how virtues, strengths, and skills can help individuals and communities thrive and flourish. It's thus heavily concerned with the study of topics such as meaning, mindset, happiness, gratitude, compassion, and more, which can play a role in well-being and a meaningful good life. In Martin Seligman's authentic happiness theory, the life of pleasure, subjective well-being falls under one of the three basic orientations that facilitate well-being. Number one, the pleasant life, a hedonic orientation concerned with positive affective experiences. The meaningful life, number two, a eudaimonic orientation that focuses on working toward a higher purpose. And third, the engaged life that involves one's engagement with engaging or flow eliciting activities, a psychological well-being orientation. These are little technical. Let me repeat it once again. The three basic orientations that facilitate well-being: the pleasant life, the meaningful life, and the engaged life. Overall, your life is a pleasant one. You are doing whatever you are doing is meaningful. You are not doing any meaningless things in your life. And third, since you are doing meaningful things in your life, you are quite engaged in that. So these three orientations facilitate a subjective well-being. Typically considered a hedonic form of happiness, subjective well-being is central to the first orientation, a life of pleasure or a pleasant life, when we talk about subjective well-being. So life satisfaction and subjective well-being. What is life satisfaction exactly? According to Dutch happiness expert Winhoven, It refers to the degree to which a person evaluates the overall quality of his or her present life as a whole positively. That's called life satisfaction. The concept of life satisfaction talks about, in the article, happiness, also known as life satisfaction and subjective well-being. He presented a fourfold matrix to unpack the subjective life satisfaction concept further. Penhoven. His framework involves two axes, from short-lived to enduring satisfaction and from overall satisfaction to satisfaction with life domains. So part of life as pleasure, life as a whole. These are the two dimensions on one aspect, and the other aspect is passing and enduring. And the four quadrants, they talk about part of life, you are just passing, that is pleasurable. Life as a whole, you are passing, it is top experience. Part of life is enduring, that quadrant is called domain satisfaction. Life as a whole is enduring, that's called happiness. So instant satisfaction or pleasure is a passing, often sensory experiences of life aspects. Examples include listening to a great piece of music or eating a delicious slice of cake or watching a movie of your choice. Instant satisfaction or pleasure, hedonism. Domain satisfaction is enduring, continued appreciation of a life domain, being satisfied with your academic career, or for instance, your marriage. Top experience describes passing satisfaction with your life overall, that is short-lived but intense. Binhoven describes one example as a moment of bliss. Finally, core meaning or happiness refers to enduring overall satisfaction with life. Binhoven considers this durable and argues that this is the real meaning of life satisfaction. Enduring overall satisfaction with life. Life satisfaction with subjective well-being. With more detail, life satisfaction is often used to refer to the cognitive component of happiness. It is enduring and concerns life as a whole. In contrast, the positive affect and negative affect elements of subjective well-being can sometimes be related to domain satisfaction, sometimes more informally to all four of the quadrants that we discussed. In short, life satisfaction is integral to subjective well-being. So when you give scores to yourselves, in fact, you are talking about subjective well-being. I hope you now have understood how your life satisfaction is talking about your subjective well-being, whether you feel good or you feel bad about it. Thank you. This today's talk, I am done with this lecture. Any questions? Any questions so far?
No, sir.
No questions? Okay, so we'll stop here for today.